and gents, so welcome back to another video. Today is exciting for two reasons. Number one, I'm gonna show you guys my new car. And number two, we're getting a new motor for the mid-engine Eclipse. Which, by the way, let's just take a moment to give a round of applause to the last motor. That thing somehow managed to not make any noise, not leave me stranded on the side of the road with a completely destroyed bottom end. 4G63s are incredibly strong motors when they're built right. And I guess when they're not built right too, it just, they'll eventually destroy themselves. Anyway, first let's talk about this new car of mine. It's nothing too crazy cool or fun like a mid-engine Eclipse. It's not gonna be a work vehicle like a truck. It's a new daily driver, which I know at first that seems boring, but let me tell you guys, for almost my entire life, I've daily driven my race cars. I've only owned one other daily driver, like actual daily driver that I didn't heavily modify before this one, and that was my LS400. That thing was the best thing I ever purchased. It's awesome being able to daily drive your project cars, your race cars, but it does get old every once in a while. It gets old hopping into your project car and then it braking on your way to work. And it gets old, you know, having to drive 15 minutes out of the way to get E85. And with this new era of Gingium, you know, trying to be as efficient as possible, doing the coolest builds as possible, I needed something that can get me to and from the shop quickly, comfortably, reliably, and so that's why I got this daily. Now, if you didn't know, I sold the LS400 in Chicago before we moved down here, just because moving it was gonna be a hassle. I've been daily driving the Delica, which has been great, but it's not good on highways. You know, it tops out at 55 miles an hour, and the drive from my house to the shop is pretty much entirely highway. For this new daily, I wanted something that was comfortable, reliable, economical, but still fun. I thought about getting another LS400. The thing about that is that it's not that great on gas. It is somewhat fun, but it's not too fun. You know, it's automatic. I kind of wanted something with a stick shift, kind of wanted something that got better gas mileage, and so that is why I got this. Ladies and gents, let me introduce you my 2008 Honda Fit.
She poppin' and droppin', she rockin' top, it's no stopping. Got me deep in my pockets, I'm about to give her my wallet, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, wow.
100 VTEC horsepowers, 30 plus miles a gallon, 5-speed manual transmission, air conditioning, comfortable seats, folding down back seats to fit all my car parts and stuff in. And most importantly, it's incredibly fun to drive. Besides the Miata, this is by far the best like driver's car I've ever experienced. Feels like a go-kart. The engine, although small and super underpowered, feels really torquey because Honda, I think, just put a really aggressive throttle map in it. So like 10% throttle at the foot is like 50% throttle at the engine, which is great for putting around town because you feel like you got torque, but then when you floor it, nothing else changes. But it's so fun. A lot of wheel hop, but I mean, I can do that and not care, and then, you know, rip it on the back road. And I feel like since it's a Honda, I can do that all day and like not have to worry about it. Again, you know, go around a corner and a little bit of understeer, but and this thing's stock, totally stock with 175 tires. The other thing I really love about this thing is that the e-brake works really well. So yeah, this car is awesome. I'm in love with it. Super happy I got it. But let's talk about this 4G63 situation here. I know a lot of you guys wanted me to rebuild the old 4G63 that came out of the Eclipse. There it is, it's my nice doorstop. The problem is that since the entire bottom end was toast, you know, the crank, the rods, pistons, it would have been super expensive to rebuild it just to a factory spec. So I went on Facebook Marketplace, I scrounged around, and I found a guy in Clark Range, Tennessee that had 3 motors, 2 fully built short blocks that his shop had assembled themselves, and 1 mildly built long block that they had purchased from another shop. And although a fully built engine with forged, you know, rods, pistons, and a crank would be cool. It's totally pointless. The factory bottom end can handle a good 400 to 500 horsepower, and anything more than that would just kind of turn it into a drag car because you need a turbo that's massive. I'm interested in the mildly built long block. It's got some awesome upgrades, but it doesn't have forged rods or crank. Now I'll tell you about the upgrades later in the video once we actually get the motor, but for now, the motor is 500 miles away. The cool thing is that in between us here in Athens, Georgia, and the motor in Clark Range, Tennessee, the tail of the Dragon is kind of on the way. So, Audrey and I, we're gonna hop in the Fit, bring the Fit, the new car, to the tail of the Dragon, have some fun, then go to Clark Range, Tennessee, pick up the motor, and bring it back. Without any further ado, let's begin the journey. Full tank. How bad is everything back here? Oh, not too bad. Well, we're about 45 minutes out of the tail of the Dragon. Already have encountered some awesome roads. Fit's killing it. Let's continue the journey. Well, we got to Deal's Gap. Unfortunately, they're closed. And, well, that would explain the rubber smell we smelt on the way up. That's unfortunate timing. Well, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. On the tail of the Dragon in my new car with a tire that I know is about to explode. So I can't rip it, I can't, I forgot how awesome this road was. And sure enough, yeah, even Audrey was disappointed. She was a little terrified. It was still very fun. And I mean, this place is so beautiful that it's worth the detour, but man. And all the other cool cars makes it even harder because it's like I could have been up with them, but no. Anyway, we had our fun at the tail. Since the tire's about to blow up, we're gonna get back to civilization as fast as we can. Two hour drive until our 4G63. This is our Airbnb. We're staying here for the night, and then we're gonna go get the motor tomorrow morning. Look at that, we got a mildly built 4G. I'll go everything it's got when we get home. For now, we gotta make it home. I gotta say, really impressed with the fit. It's like it was built to have motors put back there. It's got 4 little like tie down areas, and it's freaking awesome. This car's sweet. But there's a tire shop in town. We're gonna see if they've got any tires. And then it's a nice, easy 4-hour drive home. You know, even though not being able to do the tail did suck, it's crazy that we're only 3 hours away from the tail. Like, that is such a weird feeling, being able to drive 3 hours to the best driving road in the entire country. Now thankfully, the local tire shop in Clark Range, Tennessee did indeed have a tire in stock for the Fit, but after that, we were safe to drive home without the fear of having a tire explode on the highway. So I got the new tire. Woo! It's so pretty up here. It's really windy. Can't tell? That was one of the worst drives ever. Well, it's the next day. As you can tell, we made it back. Now we gotta do a little bit of a 4G shuffle. We gotta take the old motor, bring it out, take the oil pan off of it, put it on the new motor so we can put the new motor on the ground, so we can put the old motor on the ground, and then the new motor onto the stand. We got the motor on the stand. 4G shuffle was a success, although I realized that wasn't really necessary. We could have just, there was a much easier way to do that. So what do I mean by mildly built? Well, this engine, although it has a stock crank and stock 1G rod, it has Wiseco pistons, ARP main studs, ARP head studs, dual valve springs, and upgraded valves. It's nothing too crazy, but that's a perfect combination for the power level that we're gonna be going for. The upgraded top end will allow us to run a little bit more RPM. The Wiseco pistons will make it stronger. ARP main studs, ARP head studs will make it all stronger and more reliable. So I mean, this thing, it should be a perfect little recipe for a reliable, you know, 400 to 500 horsepower. The one problem is, and it's something that I was aware of, is that the person I bought it from has no idea the condition of this motor. For all I know, it could be just as bad as the last motor. Now he did do a leak down test for me, but it was suspiciously perfect. He tested it and it had like 1% leak down on all the cylinders, which even for like a brand new motor, that's pretty much impossible. I mean, it's possible, but for a motor that's a turbo motor that's been sitting, you know, this thing's been sitting for a year, it's very rare. Also, the head, which I didn't realize this when I picked it up, otherwise I would have negotiated a better price, but it looks like the head's damaged. Two of the cam journals look like there's a little bit of nastiness on them, and they're not smooth and they're not round like they're supposed to be. But the point is, we need to check this motor before we just throw it into the car that I'm gonna be giving to one of you guys. So we're gonna do a couple things. Number one, we're gonna disassemble the bottom end, check all the bearings. After that, we'll do our own leak down test. And then lastly, we will go ahead and actually measure each of the cam journals to make sure that they're in spec. If any of those things fail, then we'll have to fix it. If they all pass, then we should be able to reseal this motor and throw it into the car. Without any further ado, I'm gonna start with the bottom end because that's the scariest. Bottom end looked good. All the bearings were smooth, nice looking, you know, not worn down through the top layers of the metal. The crankshaft looked good. It was, you know, it was pleasant surprise. I cleaned everything, put assembly lube on everything, torqued it all back down to spec. Now we're gonna go ahead and do our own leak down test, make sure that you know, the head gasket, the piston rings, all that's good. And then we are going to check the clearances on the head. We're putting 80 PSI into the cylinders and it's holding 72. You can hear, not coming from the valve, not coming, so it's coming from the piston. That was the best leak down I've ever gotten from a Ford G63, and this one hasn't ran in a year. Tested better than mine, freshly rebuilt with the head gasket and stuff. Freaking. The new motor passed the leak down test with flying colors. About 10% leak down on every cylinder, which for a turbocharged motor is fantastic, especially one that has been sitting. Pretty much all the air was coming out through the piston rings. So hopefully, you know, after a few heat cycles, this thing will have even better leak down. The first thing we're gonna go ahead and do is measure our cam with the micrometer. This time it's actually a micrometer. So this back cam journal, it's 1.0215 inches. Sorry, not metric, I know, but this is all done in inches, all the tools. So now we have to measure the head, the diameter of the cam journal and the head to see what that measurement is. Well, let's just put it this way. Got the correct size micrometers, but my bore gauge, unfortunately, it only goes down to 2 inches, and the head should be, you know, right over an inch, like 1.02 to 1.03 inches. So it's not small enough to measure the head. But we did discover that this cam is possibly bad because that measurement, 1.025 or 215, 1.0215, that's 2/1000ths of an inch out of spec. So the cam is ground down. It's like it's too small. Turns out I don't really know how to use a micrometer. So I think actually the cam might be in spec here. Let me zero it out again. That is, okay, it's in spec. The micrometer has this little ratchet function that will pretty much get like the perfect preload on the thing you're measuring. I didn't know that, and I just kind of cranked it until it was nice and taut. So that's why I got a slightly smaller than spec measurement, because I had it too tight. That lobe was exactly in spec, although at the very low end of it. I'm gonna do the rest of the lobes now. So the good news, both cams are in spec. Once I get a new bore measuring tool thingy, we'll go ahead and measure the head. Pretty sure it's trash though. Not a huge deal, you know, we can take the head off, machine the old head, put the new valves, springs and stuff into that head, and then put it back on the motor. It would be nice if the head was already good though, but I mean, we'll see in about one day. Well, it's as we had feared. This head on the new motor is totally trash, totally out of spec. The good part of that journal is 3/1000ths of an inch out of spec. Bad part, that part's that's worn down, it's like 8/1000ths of an inch out of spec, which is, that's pretty big amount. And not only is it just out of spec, it's also out of round. It's kind of oval. I'm guessing the reason for this is that when I got the head, the caps were on the wrong location. They were switched from intake and exhaust, they were reversed. So if the motor was ran like that, then yeah, the head's gonna be trash. But it's not a huge deal. I measured the old head off the old motor just to double check, but that one is still all good in spec. So all we have to do is take the head off this bad boy and then put the old head onto this one. Now we have to bring the old head to the machine shop, get the valves and springs switched over, and then, you know, put it all back together. But if that means that you guys get a motor that doesn't blow itself up right away, I'd say that's for the best. So let's go ahead and remove this head real quick, yeah? Okay, never mind about taking the head off. The valve springs on this thing are too big to get a socket onto the head bolt. So I guess I have to remove the valve springs before I can remove the head bolts to remove the head, which means I need another tool. But for now, we have a lot more work to do on the chassis to get the motor and stuff ready to go in. So in the next video, we're gonna go ahead and work on that. We're gonna mount the subframe that we made. We're gonna start the cage, and it's gonna be a good time. If you wanna watch that video early, you can click up there. Otherwise, it'll be live hopefully in a few days. If you want to enter for your chance to win the mid-engine Eclipse, you can head over to powerjdm.com. Every $1 spent there will give you 1 entry to win the car. That includes purchasing car parts and merchandise. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for the support, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, goodbye. The other thing I really love about this thing is that the e-brake works really well.